looking how to do a reverse sear on a steak, it's really quite simple. Rather than adding a bunch of heat up front, you slowly cook the inside to the temperature you want, which in this case is going to be 125 degrees. So that's getting a nice even cook on the inside. And then right at the end, you hit it with a super, super hot heat. So this isn't necessarily like a ketogenic recipe. I've got a porterhouse T-bone, which is pretty high fat, but more just showing this because it can get kind of boring without getting really creative on a keto diet. So using some Himalayan pink salt, which is great because it's got extra minerals and electrolyte type stuff, as well as Trader Joe's spray olive oil. So we're gonna just salt that and then stick it in the oven, which today we're using the Breville Smart Oven, which is really amazing. It does air frying, it does dehydrating. It basically has replaced our gas oven, and it's a countertop. So we'll take a look at that. So doing this in the Breville Smart Oven, which is super simple to use and has all of the sort of pre-done settings that you need. And we are going to cook this at 275 and be checking the temperature as we go. So 275, this oven preheats so fast that I don't even really have to wait. Plus it doesn't really matter because we're trying to get that slow cook anyways on the steak. So we just hit that with some salt, a little bit of oil, and we're gonna let that go until the steak gets to 125. All right, so I just temped these and they are at about 128, which is actually a touch higher than I want. So as you can see, they look really hideous coming out of the oven, but they're actually at the internal temperature that we want. And it only took about 10 minutes to get them there. So now we're gonna let them rest for about 15 minutes. And then we're gonna get a cast iron skillet piping hot to finish them off with the sear. So next step is to get the sear on the steak. It's already at the right internal temperature, but we're gonna get a piping hot sear, and that gives you a much more even cook on the inside. So we're gonna use actually a touch of MCT oil. Like I said, we're doing a keto diet, so you don't have to do this, but you do want a high heat oil, and a little bit of buffalo ghee. We use like the four seasons or something ghee. I'll link them all below as well. But this is gonna add some fat, and it also has a really high flash point to add some flavor. And we're gonna get that piping hot, and I like to throw a little bit of garlic in there with it as well, and just give it kind of a, sort of knead the garlic to loosen up those oils. And then at the end, we're going to throw in just some little red peppers for flavor. But let's salt the steaks again, which is going to help give it a real nice crust. And again, we're using that Himalayan salt. I'll link that down below as well. So you really want this to get just kind of ridiculously hot. Okay, so this thing is really hot. We've got the butter sort of caramelized, or the ghee actually. And we're gonna go ahead and drop this in. And you want to make sure you're pushing the side up to render out and cook some of the fat on the side there. And you do want to press, especially if you have a bone sticking up. That can prevent full contact with the meat. So, looking much tastier than before. I'd say that is about ready to come off. So there is the finished product. It turned out really well, especially for my first time doing this. And it was really easy to just throw in the oven before it even preheated. And then it finished searing 2 steaks actually in under about 3 minutes. And it's got a much sort of deeper steak flavor with good browning, but none of the sort of char that you would get from the grill. And I definitely recommend adding a bit of like a sweet baby bell pepper at the end. It really brings out that sweet and spicy flavor, and it gets into the steak. It's really good. You know, that and garlic go great.